This Sunday we are going to worship with the Tzeltal believers in the village of Amatenango, and Helen is dressed very appropriately. The believers gather at the home of Mariano Perez. We have brought our portable organ, which attracts a lot of attention as Helen plays some hymns before the service begins. The church leaders plan the service with Roberto Santis, the Tzeltal missionary. Two of the church leaders, Mariano and Emilio, are wearing stocking caps to cover the injuries they received when 3 assassins tried to kill them. Visiting the group today is Abdias Tovia and his family. He is a Presbyterian minister and also a lawyer who is assisting the believers in their struggle for religious liberty. With his help, the believers gained permission to hold worship services in Mariano's house. Rapidly outgrowing his house, the congregation built this lean-to on the back side of his home. Leading the service today is the veteran Tzeltal minister Francisco Gomez, who is accompanied by 2 elders from his church in Corralito. The elder on the right side is his son-in-law Jose Diaz. Also coming from the Corralito church is this singing group, led by Pastor Francisco's daughter and son-in-law. Following the service, the congregation and guests gather for a photo. Another visitor is this elder from one of the Tenihapan churches, dressed in his tribal garb. He spoke words of encouragement to the congregation, telling how the Lord protected them during the years of persecution in his area. The Amatenango congregation grew rapidly, necessitating the doubling of the width of their lean-to. On this Sunday, the guest is Steve Engel, the son of Wycliffe missionaries and a courageous supporter of the Amatenango believers. Being welcomed also are Steve's wife, Mari, and their 2 daughters. On another Sunday, a group came in this truck from Chanal, a highland village where the initial believers had endured severe persecution. Playing the violin is Ernesto Gomez, the first believer in Chanal. He was imprisoned, and his house was destroyed when he became an evangelical. Before they left, they posed for an official photo. On another Sunday, the visitors are a large group from Roberto's home church of Pachtontica. The Tzeltal Presbytery had assigned to them the pastoral care of the Amatenango believers. There were many baptisms that morning, with Pastor Mariano Gomez of Pachtontica officiating. With his head bowed in prayer, Roberto Santis is witnessing the fruits of his witness in Amatenango. It included the baptism of the elderly parents of Lazaro Lopez. Lazaro is an elder and a paramedic, and one of the first Amatenango converts. Helen is seated in the congregation, identified by her glasses. Amatenango elders and these 4 deacons were chosen and presented to the congregation. Pastor Mariano read the liturgy. Then the new elders and deacons were ordained by the visiting elders and deacons from Pachtontica. The congregation gathered for a photo following the service. I took a photo of the cute kids in the front row. And then the cute bigger kids wanted to get their faces in the photo too. The service was followed by a dinner of chicken soup and tortillas and a variety of soft drinks. Pastor Mariano was given the place of honor at the head of the table. The congregation purchased property behind Mariano's house, but they were not given permission by the village authorities to build a church building. They started building anyway. On this Sunday, they met inside the walls of the new building, partly because a group was threatening to come and tear down the walls that day. The believers had piles of sticks in the back corners and let it be known that they would defend their building. At a village meeting, the aggressors did not get the support of over half the villagers, and nothing happened. The opposition subsided, and the believers were able to finish the construction of the building. Then came the Saturday that they tore down the temporary lean-to. The boards that served as church benches were gathered up. The tin roof was carefully taken down. The rafters were taken down, and the new church building in the background waited patiently. Then they opened a road to the new church building. The dedication service was a happy event, and Steve Engel sang in the choir that day along with Roberto and Micaela. Their own instrumental praise team also played and sang. Seeing the rapid growth of the Amatenango congregation and the rapid development of the church leaders, Roberto could foresee the time when he and Micaela could return home. He purchased some property on a hillside above the town of Ostchuk and arranged for the construction of a house and kitchen. He invited the Amatenango believers to join his family and friends for the dedication service of his house, and he contracted with the political leader of Amatenango, Timoteo, to provide transportation in his truck. Pastor Mariano Gomez was given the privilege of unlocking and opening the doors of the new home. Inside the living room, Roberto had a gift for his home church of Paxtontica. It was a pulpit that Roberto had built. On the front are the words, "God is love." Seated at the main table for the worship service are Pastor Mariano Gomez and 2 elders from his church in Paxtontica and 3 elders from Amatenango. Roberto's guest of honor was Timoteo, the political leader of Amatenango, who was becoming increasingly friendly toward Roberto and the Amatenango believers. It was a beautiful day and a long program. The Paxtontica choir sang some songs. Timoteo's truck and our Ichi van are parked above. Then the Amatenango choir sang some songs, with Roberto and Micaela leading them. A family from Puerto also sang, as did a musical group from Paxtontica, followed by a song led by Roberto's sons and his brother. Pastor Mariano preached a sermon with Roberto, Micaela, and their sons seated before him. He concluded his message with a prayer, asking for God's continued blessing on Roberto and his family. The final song was sung by Roberto, Micaela, and their 2 sons. Roberto thanked all for coming to the celebration and invited them to share in the food and beverages. The women of Paxtontica are enjoying their turn at the table. Helen and the wives of the Paxtontica minister and elders are fed at the head table. For Timoteo, it was undoubtedly an impressive celebration. Beautiful music, good food, and a happy united gathering of Ostchuk and Amatenango Tzeltals, and no alcohol. He soon officially declared that he also was an evangelical. Then came the day of Roberto and Micaela's departure from Amatenango. Micaela dressed in her Ostchuk garb for the service. Here the Amatenango elders are singing a hymn in their honor. It was especially appropriate since Roberto and Micaela had given them the gift of music. They had taught them singing in 4-part harmony and had assisted them in the translation of the hymns into their dialect. They presented a gift to them. Our guess is that it is one of those beautiful flower pots. The instrumental praise group also had a gift and words of thanks for their leadership and encouragement. Next was Lazaro and his wife Petrona. They were among the first converts, and he serves as an elder and a paramedic. Others came forward with gifts and words of thanks, including this elderly man dressed in Amatenango garb. He was followed by the leading elder, Agustin Gomez, and his wife. Then came the leaders of the congregation in Puerto. Then they all gathered for one final photo of the congregation and Roberto and Micaela. It was then our privilege to drive them to their new home in Oschuk. Some weeks later, a delegation from the Tzeltal Presbytery arrived for a Sunday service in Amatenango. It was led by Pastor Francisco Mendez. Also present were the elders from Pachtun Tikha, who now officially completed their assignment of giving pastoral care to the Amatenango congregation. The Amatenango elders and deacons were then presented as the elected and authoritative leaders of the Amatenango Church. Also present was Pastor Pedro Diaz, who had been selected by the Tzeltal Presbytery to be the pastoral leader for the Amatenango Church until they chose a minister from their own members. Pastor Pedro spoke briefly and offered the closing prayer of the service.